everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. Hi, Meggie. Thanks for jumping in
Hi.
and joining. It is Meggie Ramm or Meggie the Ram we were just talking about, and so glad to have you. Talking comics and writing for young readers and crafting and all of those things.
Yeah, it's great to be here. It's really funny because I use Meggie the Ram on as like my Instagram handle and on Twitter and everything. And I think that people think that it's just like a cute like nickname or something, but that's actually just that's my name. My name is Meggie Ram, and I just put the in there at the
I
beginning.
love it.
Now it's becoming a thing.
What's really cool about it as a connection is I do poetry and creative writing just for fun, just for funsies. And one of the little characters or kind of creatures that I wrote about years ago was kind of this hybrid of like a business person and a ram who's like always like, why am I in an office right now? I should be out in the woods. And it was like John Ram, and I also spelled it with two M's. So that was it's kind of a nice little connection we have going here.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, that exists somewhere in, if it's still published online somewhere in like a poetry thing. But we are not here to talk about my writing. We're actually here to talk about yours and your illustrating. So notice how I just shifted right away from that.
Perfect. Beautiful. Excellent
Wonderful.
pivot.
We try 10. Um, what drew you to the written? And I also have the illustrated word because we're talking comics and graphic novels.
Well, I didn't want to be a cartoonist when I was like a kid. I really wanted to be a janitor for a long time because the janitor at my elementary school was really awesome and didn't yell at you if you puked in the hallway,
Nice.
which was like, pretty awesome. And then
Yes.
I did a bunch of science classes, and when I went to undergrad, I really wanted to do science and like marine biology or something like that. But I ended up failing a lot of my science classes. I tried to do like what I needed for biology, and I like really just wrecked my biology class. I was like, okay, I'll do ecology. That'll be my major. And then like super flunked my ecology class. I think I tried like one other science major, and and like the classes weren't going well. And I was like, okay, so maybe I need to rethink this.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I had taken a comic class just because it was literally the only English class I could fit into my schedule at the time. And like I couldn't figure out anything else. And I was just like, I'll just do this one because it fits. And I'm a freshman and I have no idea what's going on. And it was the one class that I had my like freshman year that, and like for the first 2 years, I think, of college, it was the one class that I had that I really enjoyed and that I didn't super suck at, which is it's a big thing, like being in a class that you're not like failing hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was not doing very well in a lot of my classes that first year, but I was doing really well in comics class. So I would say the first thing that drew me to comics class was me just not flunking the heck out of it. And then I read a lot of newspaper comics when I was a kid, like the Sunday funnies. I would always like race my brother to the newspaper to see who could get them first. So I was
Nice.
really drawn to like newspaper comics and Gary Larson and like The Far Side. That was like
Mhm.
my jam. And like Calvin and Hobbes, obviously, but I didn't really like look back at that as like a formative thing until I started getting more into comics because I tried taking more comics and illustrated classes and I was like, this is awesome. Like I love this. Like the way that these stories work out are great. And uh I didn't really like get exposed to like the comic world at large until undergrad. I didn't go into a comic book shop until I think like my sophomore year of college.
Mhm.
And I was so worried that like somebody was going to be like that person, they do not have a nerd card, like revoke their entry. But now I spend a lot of time in comics, or in comic shops, but it was kind of just like that first class just showed me how much fun it was to just do so many ridiculous things. I feel like you can be far more ridiculous in comics than in like a written novel. You can just
Mhm.
get away with so much more ridiculousness and you get to do fun things with color and fun things with font. I just think that comics are like the perfect trifecta of like narrative and design and art. And I think that everybody should just acknowledge that they're the perfect art form. And I
Agreed, agreed.
disagree. I will disagree with anybody who says anything different.
Love it, love it. Yeah, very, very well said. Love the passion. And you said before we were recording that you've also spent time as a teacher of comics. So great that you have that passion for the medium too and advocacy.
Yeah, I that was when so I went to California and got a master's in comics when I was there. And then when I was there, I was like frantically searching for any job to do with comics. And the first like official comic job that I got was somebody was looking to for somebody to teach comics to kids, and they were like, "Do you like kids?" And I lied and I said, "I love kids." Like I would love to teach. But it actually was great because like now I love kids, and teaching kids is like comics is like the best job in the entire world. Like the time that I spent in California teaching kids comics was like probably some of the best years of my life. I got to meet so many cool kids. They had way better stories than I could ever come up with. And it also really helped me as a cartoonist because they'd be like, I want to draw this. How do I draw this? Or
Hmm.
like having to take something like sound effects and emanata and pacing and breaking it down so like somebody in third grade can understand what that is. So they're getting like those elements out of the class. So, and I had to like sit down and be like, okay, so how do I explain how eyebrows work in a way that a kid will understand? Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
so that was great. I just got to do a workshop this last weekend with kids again, and it was the best. I just got to see them drawing all kinds of crazy stuff.
That's a nice lead in to talk about what it's like to write for youth and kind of work for
Yeah.
that particular audience and with that particular audience. Was teaching the thing that connected you there, along with the ridiculousness of what you can do in comics.
I didn't really ever pitch like kids comics. That wasn't, again, that wasn't, I kind of fell into it, honestly. Like I fall
Hmm.
into a lot of things. But I had pitched another graphic novel in at the end of 2019 about the history of the Olympics because my partner's family goes to the Olympics every year, and I'm not a sports person, so I still go because it's fun, but like I can't tell you, I couldn't probably name a single Olympic athlete right now or tell you how like basketball is played. And so I pitched that to Abrams, which is my publishing company, and they were like, "Oh, this is great, and you're going to the Olympics in this the year of 2020, so you can write about it after you come back from, the Olympics that are definitely going to happen in this the year of 2020." And
Yes,
that's
it's really fortuitous that they even said it that way, you
yeah,
know.
right. Um, and so that obviously didn't work out, and I'm still kind of working on that just because of all of the delays and whatnot. But
Mhm.
while I was just like sitting around, I had Batcat, which is a zine that I had drawn for my students because the
Mm.
last day of class we would all have mini comics that we'd make and we'd trade them. So I'd always make a mini comic to trade with them. And Batcat was just on there as like it was making fun of Batman.
Uh-huh.
And then
Mhm.
um somebody saw the character and they're like, this is cute, but can you do it, without the copyright infringement? And I was like, yeah. And so I just put together a story that was just like absolutely as ridiculous and full of the things that I liked and wanted to draw as much as possible. And I think that that's something that I both learned from my students and also something that you can do in kids comics is you can create like crazy sort of fantastical worlds and storylines, and you don't have to be like in Batcat there's Spooky Island, but you don't have to be like Spooky Island was formed when like a pumpkin like crash landed in the middle of the ocean, and like you don't have to worry about explaining every facet of the lore. I didn't have to
Mhm.
explain how Batcat became Batcat. It just like exists and kids are just like, yeah, all right, I get it, like what else?
I'm in.
So yeah, so I find because I was also working on like it got paused because of Batcat kind of, taking off more than I think we expected. But I was working on the Olympic comic at the same time I was working on the Batcat comic, and the Olympic one is like part historical, part memoir, part facts, part a lot of stuff that is like me as a non-sports person being like, here's how sports work.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then Batcat is just like ridiculous and fun. And it's so much more fun to work on Batcat because it's just so silly and I can just create characters like skeleton mermaids and get away with it.
Love it, love it. I was at this year's NCTE convention and I happened by, I guess it was Abram's table, and there was a lovely person there working, and they were like, "You should check out Batcat," and I was like, "I've seen it." So there's a series, which is something I would love for listeners out there to know. Anything as far as introing it for young readers, teachers that you'd like to add on to the description that you just shared?
Well, I gotta tell, well, I really love Batcat because I wrote it.
Yes, yes.
But I think Batcat is really great for young readers because uh, number one, the color palette is really fun. I
Hmm.
try to put as many like candy colored, bright colors in there as possible just because I love coloring comics. And I feel like as a kid, I always kind of veered towards the stuff that was like more colorful. I make a joke that I like took Lisa Frank and spun her around in a circle and then had her barf out the colors onto my comic. But that's probably not a really good sell line for it.
It's got the visual though, it works.
Yeah.
And
But Batcat's got there's singing, the book one, it has singing in it. It's about accepting yourself in a way that I think is really accessible. There's lots of food in it and food puns. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me and say that, their kids learn to read with this book, which is, absolutely the best thing that's ever
Mhm.
happened to me. And
Mhm.
then also just like having a bunch of kids who are like non-binary like me or who have multiple identities or just are having problems like with trying to figure out how to balance between one thing and another thing and just seeing Batcat just be like, I'm going to do my own thing,
Yeah.
which is very 100% just something that I do all the time when people are trying to get me to decide. I'm like, haha, but I will do the third option, which I'm going to make.
Yes, yes, yeah. Absolutely. As you're saying that, I hear a lot of my students in that as well, and a lot of that innovation that they bring and creativity. So I love the creativity and I love the inspiration that you provide in the book as well.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really miss teaching my younger students because like I like Batcat, but if I could just publish like half of the stories that they worked on. There's one, I tell this is another one, but I had this one girl who wrote a story about a bunny that really wanted to join a ballet studio, but the ballet studio was for humans only. So the bunny went to a costume store and bought a human suit and zipped himself up into this human suit. And then they got to join the dance company. And I was like, that is horrifying. That is fantastic. That is something that I never could have come up with. And I think about that story at least like once a week.
Yeah, yeah. But kudos for the brilliance of trading the mini comics. What a great idea.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's something that, it's something that happens a lot of at comic conventions, is trading your comic with other people to kind of, get to know other people and also because then you get new comics, which is great. But I really wanted to do it with my students because A, that means that I got a copy of their comic,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
B, it kind of showed them how to like actually put the comic together like a little self-published scenester. So that's important. I hope they can take that knowledge to the bank.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned that you do workshops, and I'd love to give you the chance to talk about that, places where people can connect, and anything that is ahead for Batcat. It sounds like you also have a sports book that's on the way,
Yeah.
in some stage of development. So anything about what is next that you can and would like to mention, and spaces where people can get in touch.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, I love doing workshops. I can do them for, I've got stuff for ages like second grade to fifth grade, but I've also doing some with high schoolers. I've also done some at senior centers, which is also a blast. And if you're interested in any of the workshops, I have some on character design. I have some on Emanata. I can also just come and speak to your library or your class. I would love to do that. I like would just love to spend all day with students because that's just the best thing. And if you're interested in that, you can just go. I have a submission form on my website, which is meggietheramm.com. and that's Ram with two M's and Meggie. Sometimes people have a hard time spelling that too. And then what's coming next is in terms of books that are coming out, book three is almost done, which is great because I need it to be done. Because the weather's too nice to be inside drawing all the time. So I am going to be finishing up book three, but that probably won't come out until April of next year. I'm working on an Olympic comic. I'm going to the Olympics this year, so wish me luck on making
Yes.
that happen. And then I'm also going to be, I just found this out recently. I'm going to be an invited guest for San Diego Comic Con, which I've never been to before, and I'm a little nervous about because it's the big one, and there's going to be a lot of people there. But hopefully I can find if there's like a kid corner. I can just go and hang out in the
I'm
kid
sure.
corner.
I'm sure there's a space there. I'm sure
Yeah.
there are other creators for kids and kind of the young adult graphic novel scene. I'm sure there's a
Yeah.
scene there. Yeah.
Yeah, I have some friends who are going, so that'll be fine. And then my other job is I work for another comic publisher, 10 Speed Graphic.
Oh yeah.
And so I'll have some friends there, some of my coworkers there, so I'll be able to see a lot of people, but I'm still just it's the big one and I'm just
It
a little
is.
stressed about it. But it'll be fine. It'll be exciting.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and I'm excited that uh, San Diego invites and has room for and wisely makes room for something that doesn't necessarily fall in like the superhero world or
Yeah,
the film world. So that's very
exactly.
exciting as well.
I honestly I thought it was a phishing scheme for like the first five emails. I thought they were trying to get my credit card information, and it was only like a couple emails in that I was like, oh, okay, so this is happening. And then I went to WonderCon earlier this year and I did like a signing and nobody knew who I was. So I'm wondering if the same thing will happen at San Diego Comic Con. But if it does, I still get to go to San Diego Comic Con. So
Indeed, indeed. And there's this growing audience, which I think is really cool for um, graphic novels for younger readers and middle grades readers. So uh, may the time be very not too busy, the right amount of busy. I don't
yeah,
know what one wishes for at a con.
I
Um,
wish to stay hydrated the entire time and to have access to comfy shoes. I think that's what I wish for
yes,
myself.
yes, those are wonderful life wishes in any context. Love them. Um, well, love the work you're doing. I love the fact that when you're not doing uh, Batcat and other things, you are also working at 10 speed. So it sounds like you are immersed in the world of comics.
Yeah, that kind of happened. I really wanted to be a cartoonist since I took that comic class. And I had like I was like a cartoonist assistant. I worked on one of Raina Telgemeier's books. I worked for Dan Klaus for a while. I worked at a comic shop. I worked as a freelance cartoonist. I worked for like a printer. I think I worked for like an app making comics for them. And, you know, I taught in certain ways and just
Mhm.
had like a bunch of just very random comic jobs. And now I've got just the two making Batcat and working for a comic publisher, which is great because now my whole life is comics. Um, there's no but after that. My whole life is comics and it's awesome.
That's it. That's it. Love it. Well, Maggie, did we miss anything in the talk through that you want to make sure to mention before we close?
I think that's it. Check out Batcat Sink or Swim. It just came out. Keep reading comics, keep reading banned comics, especially. I think
Hmm.
that's really important. And yeah, buy your kids just comics for days. If you're an adult listening to this, that's the only thing I'd like to add is just keep buying your kids comics.
Absolutely. Keep reading, keep buying them, keep exploring them, and they are in fact real books as well.
They are real books. They truly are.
Yep. Well, thank you so much for the time and the wonderful conversation, and glad to have you back anytime.
Thanks for having me. This was really nice.